Turn over, be the only word that's heard. America, America, change on through. America, America, keep our children free. Little sister, make them engage. Living in a one-room jungle, monkey cage. Can't get over, she's almost dead. And black, she ain't in bed. America, America, God shed His grace on through. America, America, keep the children free.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. America is in complete turmoil. Some very unqualified members of the president's cabinet have been sharing text messages on war planning, war games, attacking the Houthis in Yemen, and the consequences for our national security are nothing short of extraordinary. That's what's taking place in the news today. It is going to dominate the news for a number of days, maybe even weeks, as Congress has finally developed some spine and some backbone to challenge this administration and some of the incompetent leadership that they have, well, allowed to be in various cabinet positions. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has obviously dominated the news, but those who have not had to experience the burden of having to be superior just to be equal, African Americans, we watch as some of the most unqualified people in the history of the U.S. government are now leading various agencies and departments, and there will be consequences for their lack of qualifications, including the national security of the United States. Today, we continue our History Month series for Women's History Month with none other than Reverend Dr. Jacqueline A. Thompson. She is described as a transformational preacher, dynamic leader, and ministry trailblazer. Dr. Thompson is an inspiring example of what God can do with a life committed to the call. She currently serves as the beloved senior pastor of the Allen Temple Baptist Church in her native Oakland, California. Her 2019 election made history nationwide as the first woman called to serve as senior pastor of this historic African-American church founded in 1919, 100 years after its founding. Before being called in this capacity, Dr. Thompson served as assistant pastor at Allen Temple and as youth minister at Shiloh Baptist Church in Washington, D.C., the first woman to serve in both capacities. Committed to excellence in scholarship, Dr. Thompson received her Bachelor of Arts in Political Economics from the University of California, Berkeley, the Master of Divinity from Howard University School of Divinity in Washington, D.C., and while at Howard, she received the Nannie Helen Burroughs Award for Academic Excellence and the Henry G. Maynard Award for Excellence in Preaching and Ministry. Believing in the importance of orthodoxy and orthopraxy, Dr. Thompson continued her studies at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California, where she was awarded the Doctor of Ministry degree in African American Church Leadership. Dr. Thompson, welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Dr. Thompson, these are extraordinary times, and I had the great privilege of hearing you preach on a number of occasions, and so much so that I even encouraged my father to encourage those within the Democratic Party to offer you an opportunity to speak at the Democratic Convention. I thought the word, the prophetic word that you brought, the word of clarity that you brought, deserved the kind of stage that only the Democratic Party itself could bring. This is Women's History Month, but more specifically, it's obviously African American Women's History Month. And it is the month that women have brought and have had challenges, particularly in the African American community, to ascend to levels of excellence that you have achieved, if you will, or ascended to at Allen Temple. Share with our listeners in the first 3 or 4 minutes that we have left in this particular segment what the struggle has been, how important the prophetic vision of women has been, and why for such a time as this, so many of our women must step forward and be called.
Again, thank you so much for having me. And I certainly want to greet those of us who are viewing us online and those who are listening by radio. Certainly, and I appreciate even your recommendation because I think that particular text that you're lifting up clarifies the moment, right? So the reality is we are living in times where giants have returned. If you know Bible, you know that whenever we tell the story of giants, we're always talking about David and Goliath, and most people think that that is the only giant that is present. But if you go later on in the biblical text, you will find that there is a subsequent generation that now has to battle those same giants. And so that is the climate and the time that we are living in. And it's critical because none of us arrive at any point of success on our own. So particularly speaking of women, it is not just the women that we know of, not just the women who have been educated, but as Cheryl Townsend said to us, where would the Black church be if it were not for the women, right? So for the many, many lay women, the unnamed women, the women who have paved the way for us to get here in so many various industries, it is critical. It is critical and critical in the time where they are trying to erase our history, that women step up and take their place. At the root of the challenge is patriarchy, right? And so patriarchy is that social system. It's that structure that has benefited men, namely white men, in the area of politics, in the area of economics, you name the industry, and it is present. And because it has been present for so long, it has now become culture. It has now become expectation. And so I think that's also the challenge that we even saw with our most recent DNC, an election attempt for a Black woman to rise to the highest office in the land. And so it becomes incumbent upon us to learn the lessons from the past, but moreover, to really coalesce and figure out what we are going to do to band together to continue to chip away at this system of patriarchy that is trying to drag us back to an era that so many of our ancestors fought to free us from.
Dr. Thompson is my very special guest. Dr. Jacqueline Thompson, the pastor of the Allen Temple Baptist Church, is my special guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, Dr. Thompson is going to break down for us the history of patriarchy and the changes that we must make. I personally believe Democrats need to understand that Black women overwhelmingly voted Democratic this time, and Black women are the leaders of the Democratic Party. Half of the nation's country should be following the leadership of the likes of Dr. Thompson when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, yo, come on. Pick up the drum.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chucky. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
At Exquisite Family Mortuary, we know how overwhelming it can be planning a meaningful farewell for your loved one. Secure your peace of mind by calling Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. That's Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. From traditional funeral services to memorials to direct cremation, pre-needs, and more. Call Charlotte White at Exquisite Family Mortuary for Southern hospitality in Southern California. That's Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. Exquisite Family Mortuary is located nearby in Inglewood, California. Exquisite Family Mortuary, where your loved one becomes our loved one.
The revolution will not be televised.
What's up? It is Killer Mike, also known as Michael Render, and I'm encouraging you to listen to more, not less, of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Senator Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
Bring spring to your door with Target Circle 360. Get all you need for Easter hosting, spring get-togethers, and more with unlimited same-day delivery through Target Circle 360. From Easter basket goodies to fresh florals, getting everything the same day is easy. Open the Target app and bring the magic of the season to your door with unlimited same-day delivery through Target Circle 360. Visit Target.com/circle or the Target app for more details. Subscription required. Same-day delivery is subject to terms. Applies to orders over $35.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Light a candle, pour some wine. Grab a roll, the soft kind for a little me time. Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear. Wavy edges for my rear. So let the softness caress your soul. Just relax, you're on a roll. Let her rip. Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear.
Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear has the same softness you love, now with wavy edges that tear better than the leading one-ply brand. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest is Dr. Jacqueline Thompson, a member of the NAACP and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Her activism and leadership has been recognized by various chapters, honoring her with Community Excellence Awards and Distinguished Women of the Year Awards. Dr. Thompson, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be with you.
Dr. Thompson, I raised this question of your excellence and your journey as particularly important as an example to other Black women around the country who not only overwhelmingly took control of the Democratic Party last November, but for this, in this moment where you have suggested that patriarchy itself is a challenge for all of us, but it's a double challenge for Black women. You run the Democratic Party. I mean, Black women overwhelmingly voted, unlike any other group, for Kamala Harris. And those who didn't have to share more than their share of the burden for what we are going through in the first 50, 60, or 100 days of the Trump administration for the recession, if you will. Black women have kind of now gone backwards. I don't say go backwards, but have receded back into the shadows when they have come forward and taken over a political party. Share with us your journey, but also share with us the propitious nature of the moment for which Black women must assume the ascendancy that they have earned and the leadership that you represent.
Well, I think it's an interesting discussion, and it's a challenge, right? Because it's not just a double-pronged issue, it is triple for Black women. As Black women, we deal with the issue of race, we deal with the issue of gender, we deal with the issue of class. And so as you lift it up, Black women overwhelmingly, the 92% came together, coalesced, brought their resources, their skills, their gifts, their talent, their money to the Democratic Party in order to support a candidate that we felt would actually turn the country around and lead us to a brighter future as a nation. Not just about making history, but moreover, actually embodying the values that so many of us support. And so when that voice was blatantly ignored, the 92% after, and we all lobbied, right? We've all seen each other on the path throughout all of last year, whether we were online in forums like this, on the radio, whether we were in Zooms. Black women came together from all backgrounds. So to ignore that is a slap in the face to Black women. And so Black women, many Black women have said, okay, now maybe it's time for us to focus on the things that concern us. Because Black women historically, not just in this moment last year, historically, it has always been Black women who have stepped to the forefront to save the Democratic Party on the promise that if we do our part, then when the time comes, we will be repaid. There is debate as to whether or not that repayment has actually come. Right. So historically, you can start with Sojourner Truth, hit Fannie Lou Hamer, come on up through the civil rights movement, and even to what we saw with women last year in trying to support our Vice President Harris. And so Black women, I say, are they're taking a spa day, if you will. They're not, I'm not saying that Black women are not engaged. Black women are still standing on business. But at some point, Self-care is necessary for self-preservation.
Mm.
It is difficult to sit on the bylines and to watch the things that are taking place. But at the same time, many Black women feel like we told you that none of this should be a surprise. We said to you what the risk would be if you did not listen to the voices of Black women. And so I think we have to give Black women some time to recover. We have to respect Black women's right to preserve themselves, their families, their well-being, their health, emotionally, spiritually, and financially, as well as make room for other people who some may say have been neglectful in the fight. Make room for them to take their place, right? Now, I am one that believes I have never, and this goes for Black men as well, because we lifting up the 92%, but we know 84% of the brothers, right, showed up as well. I have never not seen us rise to the occasion. We always have. But at the same time, sometimes, what is it, Chinua Achebe, who says sometimes things have to fall apart in order for them to be able to come back together. And so I think Black women are doing the work that they need to do in order to be in it for the long haul.
The prophetic voice of Black women is clearly the spine and the backbone of the liberation theological tradition. We hear from James Cone, we hear from Ferrer, we hear from Dyson and Aubrey Hendricks and others who've laid a foundation. But there is also this prophetic ministry of Black women within the church, particularly the Black church, to make the Black church, if you will, live up to the true meaning of its own creed. The struggle to have that voice in the Black church, there's a part of me that's really tired of hearing the first Black woman to do this, the first Black woman to do that. Please share with us your thoughts on the execution, the elevation of that voice, and why it is so critical in this moment.
Well, I think Coretta Scott King was right when she alluded and said that the fight for liberation and freedom takes place in every generation. So I don't know if there will ever be a generation where you will not have to fight for the voice of women or for the voice of Black people, the voice of people of color. And so I, for one, welcome that. But I am very, very clear that in the same way, it is possible for us to suffer from internalized racism, that oftentimes the Black church suffers from internalized patriarchy. Right? Everything is always about systems of power and control. I am blessed that I was raised in an environment. Well, on the one hand, I had a father who did not believe women should be doing anything other than teaching Sunday school and frying the chicken, right, for church anniversary. And then on the other hand, I had a very prophetic father in ministry who always believed in elevating the voices of women, always believed in the egalitarian nature of the gospel message of Jesus Christ, and created those opportunities for women, much to many, I would say, to the harm to his personal ministry. And there are many men around the nation who have done that. But I think the challenge for women in this hour, the challenge for any woman, whenever you are trying to work against a system of oppression, is the decision to show up. You have to be present. And not just be present, you have to be willing to take up room. You have to be willing to continue to allow your voice to be heard. And you have to recognize that at some point, you don't know where you are in the struggle, right? So as scripture says, some plant, some water, but God gives the increase. And so I remember, I just have to share this story with you. I was 12 years old, sitting in the balcony at the church that I'm now blessed to pastor. And there was Women's Day. You remember Women's Mission, all the women wore white. So I'm in the balcony, probably didn't want to be there, afraid of my mother, but we were going to be in church, right? And it happened to be Women's Mission Sunday. And there was a woman by the name of Dr. Arlene Chern. She was a Baptist woman in ministry out of Philadelphia. And she mounted our pulpit, had all white on with a white hat. She had a deep, rich, resounding voice. And I remember when she opened her mouth to speak, she was like my first Beyonce, right? So she was my first Beyonce. She preached, the church erupted. I had no idea that what I was feeling was seen. That when I looked at her, I saw myself. So that's why it is so crucial in these days and times that we continue to show up. And so I take my hats off to Jasmine Crockett. I take my hat off to a Maxine Waters. I take my hat off to all of the Black women that continue to be vocal and continue to be unruly and continue to break those stereotypes to remind people that we are still here and that the future may very well lie in that 92 and 84% that showed up.
You know, I am I'm sitting here with my mouth wide open, like, wow. But when I look at what Van Jones yesterday would have called the worldly context of what you said, I mean, I see Gavin Newsom thinking about running for president. I see J.B. Pritzker in Illinois thinking about running for president. I see this. I see Rahm Emanuel talking about presidency, and all of these white guys are now expressing themselves and their desire to lead those of you who took over the Democratic Party. I mean, African American women, and yet I don't see Black women, and this is concerning to me, because with the litany of women that you've suggested, and maybe Jasmine Crockett is that future, maybe AOC, a person of color, is that future. I am profoundly concerned that, you know, when my father was told, Jesse, don't run, why are you running, in 84 and 88, you know, he said that, you know, we shouldn't just have a trailer at the Democratic convention where, you know, a few Black issues are discussed and we're trying to get it on Mondale's speech, a paragraph or two about Black folk. We shouldn't just be trying to get in Dukakis's speech a paragraph or two about Black folk and help him draft that paragraph. That it was important that we be there, which is why I know that Reverend Jackson wanted you to speak at the Democratic convention, because they wanted your voice to be there. And I'm concerned as we go into the most, if you will, the end of Second Reconstruction, possibly the beginning, and I think every day confirms that, a second Jim Crow, that Black women are going to have to lead us there. I see a lot of scared brothers right now, and I'd like you to just express from the prophetic place where that courage comes from Black women, where they are, and how can we bring them forward?
Well, I certainly, we established the fact that Black women are not a monolith, but at the same time, Black women, again, because we are contending with issues of race, because we are contending with issues of class, because we are contending. So Black women are not just concerned about themselves, they're concerned about community, right? So we go and we want to bring everyone with us. But I will also note that Black women often have to take an uncharted path. We don't have the liberty that a Gavin Newsom has, right? We don't have the segue that a Rahm Emanuel has. We have to plan. Well, sometimes we have to plan in secret, because when you make your plans known, there are those who are plotting against you from the very beginning, because they recognize what that possible transformation would do. It is my hope that perhaps our vice president might consider another run. And so we don't know yet. It is early. It remains to be seen. But what I do know is none of the names that you have named will be able to do it without Black women somewhere at
There's no doubt about that.
And so that's the truth of the matter from the very beginning. And I do think that is going to be necessary for the Democratic Party to begin to value their voices, not for the purposes of just putting Black faces in Black spaces, but understanding that Black women have a context, they have a struggle, they have a history, they have a story, similar to the Black. If we go back to the biblical text, I'm sorry, I'm a preacher, I can't
come on.
biblical text, right? And so there's always been a Deborah, there's always been an Esther, there's always, even when they discovered, you know, the text that had been hidden, they couldn't interpret it without going to see Huldah, right? Because she held that information and that knowledge, and bringing that on through to the women who continue to pave the way today. It's necessary not just to be satisfied with Black women's labor, because we have never had a problem with Black women offering their labor, but actually respecting their labor and giving them place and title and resources in exchange for the labor that they have given. So what we're experiencing now is Black women simply saying we are not going to continue to be used as modern day slaves to help bring about a change for people who do not honor who we are, honor our humanity, honor our voice, and honor what it is that we've brought to the table. People want to know, what do you bring to the table? We build in tables. The tables that the party rest on the backs of Black women, right?
Yes.
And so prophetically, we have to begin, and this can go into a whole nother conversation about white Christian nationalism, but prophetically, we have to realize that Jesus always walked among the least, the lost, and the left out. And so we have to begin to cause our leadership to look like the party that we wanted to reflect. Right?
We have about a minute and 30 seconds before the hard break.
Yes.
Your thoughts on white Christian nationalism and what it represents in this hour?
Well, white Christian nationalism for me, as I said, is not Christian at all. Right. But what it does represent is the idea that whenever there is any system of oppression, it is always undergirded by a theology. And what it does say to us is that as African-American preachers, teachers, thinkers, and scholars, we have to really begin to reimagine, dig in, analyze the way we interpret scripture, what it is we're preaching across our pulpits, who we lift up as viable voices who are able to speak into our community. You talk about Dr. Dyson, right? And so Dr. Dyson, along with Dr. Freddie Haynes, they're always the ones who remind us that you can't preach Martin Luther King over the pulpit and have John MacArthur as your commentary. Right?
Absolutely.
Because whoever is informing and interpreting scripture for you is going to inform what's being preached across the pulpit.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Dr. Jacqueline Thompson is a gifted preacher, administrator, published author, traveling and ministering extensively nationally and internationally, often in areas and arenas previously uncharted by women. She's a trailblazer, and she's making room for more African-American women to be in leadership in the United States. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, Dr. Jacqueline A. Thompson.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Esther Dillard with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Democrats are calling on top Trump administration officials to resign after a reporter said he was in a group text that discussed plans to strike Houthi targets. Black Maryland Governor Wes Moore joined union members and the American Federation of Government Employees to advocate for labor protection legislation. He's supporting the creation of a fund to help government workers terminated by the Trump administration. Black Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is under fire for apparently mocking Governor Greg Abbott, who is confined to a wheelchair after a tragic accident in his 20s.
Y'all know we got Governor High Wheels down there. Come on now.
The Black Democrat made the comments at an event in Los Angeles over the weekend. And the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, was born on this date in 1942. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
There was an ugly side to USC star Juju Watkins' season-ending knee injury Monday night at the Galen Center. As painful as it was to see the All-American from Compton go down, many USC fans made it much worse by targeting Mississippi State players with angry comments and insults. The tension caused by USC fans almost led to a post-game brawl between USC and Mississippi State players during the handshake. Denham DeShields and Chandler Prater were the 2 Mississippi State players defending Watkins when she went down. Neither player was charged with a flagrant foul. Watkins' knee buckled before DeShields and Prater made incidental contact with Watkins. Everyone is agonizing over Watkins' injury, but it's unfortunate and unfair to blame DeShields and Prater. Both were simply making a basketball play that happens all the time. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. At Exquisite Family Mortuary, we know how overwhelming it can be planning a meaningful farewell for your loved one. Secure your peace of mind by calling Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. That's Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. From traditional funeral services to memorials to direct cremation, pre-needs, and more. Call Charlotte White at Exquisite Family Mortuary for Southern hospitality in Southern California. That's Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. Exquisite Family Mortuary is located nearby in Inglewood, California. Exquisite Family Mortuary, where your loved one becomes our loved one. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest is a gifted preacher, administrator, and published author, traveling and ministering extensively nationally and internationally, everywhere. She is currently on the teaching staff of Berkeley School of Theology in the area of public theology and preaching. Her mission is the transformation of lives of others and is humbled by every opportunity to serve. Dr. Thompson, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks again for having me.
Dr. Thompson, let me ask you this question, because I had Pastor Jamal Bryant on my show a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him this question about the prophetic African-American ministerial tradition. And I asked him, why are there so few blacks that emerge or are emerging in this era during this critical moment of crisis? He said, number one, Jesse, some scholars are going to disagree with me, but the 501c3 status of the church, the government hangs that over every church's head and scares the hell out of pastors. Then he said, no other black pastor wants to go through what Jeremiah Wright went through and having their reputation just thrown out the door after decades and decades of service and serving and preaching. And then he said that white evangelicals believe that Donald Trump is some kind of second coming, while black people, on the other hand, are told that they need to keep church and state separate. But then just before the break, you said that undergirding these political movements are theological traditions that inspire, that motivate, that gird. And in a profound sense, I've argued, and we are arguing, I think today, in a very positive sense, that black women have been the force within the black liberation theological tradition that has given men the courage to stand up and fight. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that relationship between faith and politics, between church and state, between prophetic ministry and sitting back waiting for the by and by, and why we must stand up at this hour. Dr. Thompson?
Well, I think a couple of things. And so I agree with everything that Jamal said. Everything that he said is right. I would dare say, I will add to that and say that that fear is probably intensified because many of us have had monitors come to our church even recently. And so monitors have come to Allen Temple to monitor what it is that's being preached, what it is that's being said. And so you pray for me and pray that
I'm going to pray for you. Wait a second. I'm not going to let you finish the question without dealing with that one. Jamal said that his church, Jamal said that the IRS came in his church, but you're telling me that monitors came to your church. Are you telling me right here, right now, that the government has been to the church?
I don't know if they're from the government or not, but I know persons have come to record the services and document what it is that's being said, what it is that's being preached. And so I say that to underscore that that fear is a very real fear. But what I will also say is this. There are two different theologies that I think that are preached and that undergird the response of white evangelical churches and the majority of Black churches. I will say that. I will put it that way. And I think what undergirds a lot of African American churches is this idea that there is efficacy in suffering. So we are taught, rather than the white evangelicals and Christian nationalism that says Donald Trump is an instrument of God being used by God to bring about this future where the people who are in control not only look like them, but are therefore godly because they do look like them, right? But on the other hand of that, we as a people in the history of this nation have always been challenged with making sense of our suffering. And so the preaching that we have heard, whether it's been on plantations at the Hush Harbor, through all the Reconstruction, through Jim Crow, civil rights, Black Power, Black Lives Matter, it has always been the task of the preacher, help people make sense of what they're going through and what kind of God would allow it. Right? And so you have people trying to formulate, is God angry? Is this God's judgment? And there are so many that don't have the tools, don't possess a hermeneutic of suspicion, are fearful of saying that we don't serve the same God. Because the God that would allow this and ordain it, let me say ordain it, is not a God that I serve. Right? And so I am one to believe that some things occur through the permissive will of God. But because we have equated the suffering of Christ and the suffering that is allowed in the world as somehow holy and sacred, then it causes people oftentimes not to question what they're in, or to be made to feel that if they question it, somehow they're questioning and going against God. And so we just say, well, we're just going to endure. We're just going to persevere. We're just going to run on and see what the end is going to be. All of that is truth. But at the end of the day, it also immobilizes us. And it keeps us from calling a spade, if you will, calling out what's demonic when we know that it's demonic. And it allows evil to propagate. Isn't that what King said? That it's the silence. It's the good people who do nothing and who say nothing. And it becomes the age-old question, what was more effective? Those who jumped overboard before they reached the shores, or those who stayed on the ships and made it to the land? It's a false conversation. At the end of the day, the God that is preached in white evangelical churches is not the God that Black people have served.
Wow.
In the same way, the worship that they had in front of the slave master was not the worship that took place, right, when we all got together and did the ring shout and was on the Hush Harbor. It's not the same thing.
Everybody talking about heaven ain't going there.
You understand exactly what I'm saying. Everybody don't have a robe. Everybody don't have shoes, right? Everybody's not going to make it in. And so I think we have to be mindful of that. And I also want to underscore, because we have to stop believing this. There are more prophetic voices and people are speaking than we know. They often just don't have platform. That's the difference.
Well, I'm going to make this platform very available to you. One of the things that I do when I'm in predominantly Jewish audiences, we discuss the image of God, and I remind them that through their tradition, the process out of slavery, if we share slavery, Black Americans and Jews, their process out of slavery, let my people go, 12 times from Moses, plagues, Exodus, that process. But in the United States, let my people go, moral persuasion doesn't work. We had a civil war. And it required a 13th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States to get out of this kind of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
A 14th Amendment, equal protection of the laws, this kind of slavery for citizenship rights. The 15th Amendment, the right to vote for Black men. The 19th Amendment, the right to vote for women. It requires an amendment to get out of this kind of slavery. And it's not the same theologically as let my people go kind of freedom. We have a different calling, a different process, and it is unique to African Americans. And that's what I heard you say there, confirmed for me, that our people are uniquely positioned, if you will, Jonah in the middle and the belly of a whale.
Yes.
Having access to all of Jonah's vital organs. We can turn him into a steer. We can shift him this way, shift him that way by our engagement, by our prophecy, by our prophetic ministries, or we can let him do what he's doing, which has global ramifications from Greenland to Africa to Panama to every poor person seeking a malaria vaccination in Africa. Dr. Thompson, I don't want to limit our discussion to just what we're discussing domestically, because I know you see the entire world.
Absolutely. And then if you wanted to go back further, you can talk about the papal letters, right? There was a church, there was a theology that undergirded colonialism that took place all across the world. And so the reason why I'm so heavy on theology and lifting it up, did you know there is even an attempt now to teach that compassion and empathy is a sin? Right? And so when you hear it on its surface, you say, of course, that's ridiculous. Anybody who reads the ministry of Jesus knows that Jesus looked upon people and had compassion. But there is a reason for that. Because not only is there an attempt to shift the balance of power in a way that it will never return from the 1%, but there is also now an attempt to touch the hearts of people to keep them from even being concerned and worried about it. So if I think that empathy and compassion is somehow a sin against God, then I don't look at the unhoused and feel anything for them. I don't look at the children who will lose their head start with the dismantling of education. I don't look at those who are in war-torn countries, even though we're at the source of the war, and think that there's anything I'm supposed to do. Right? It rids us of the thing that calls us to actually be the hands and the feet of Christ in this area. And so I would just say that we need to be reminded that giants reproduce after their own kind. And so even though we say we've been here before, we know this fight we have, but this fight has not looked like this in this generation. But the call to agitate, to activism, to speak, and to stand up is still the same. What that looks like in Mississippi looks different in very liberal, air quote, progressive, right, Northern California. But the call is still the same. Because what we do know is that giants can be defeated.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and none other than Dr. Jacqueline A. Thompson, the pastor of Allen Temple African American Baptist Church, founded in 1919. She is our very special guest. Got a couple more questions for her, and then she's going to close out on a word of hope for all of our listeners. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Following is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways. Airfare not included. See FVGradio.com for complete details. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, Then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get your complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. Proceeding is not sponsored by this station or its affiliates.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part? They accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest for the last hour has been Reverend Dr. Jacqueline A. Thompson, the pastor of Allen Temple African American Baptist Church. She is its senior pastor, and I'm so grateful that she's taken this time to be with us on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. You know, in this final segment, Dr. Thompson, people are scared. They're fearful, from the media to the ministry, concerned about what it means to be free, concerned about whether or not they will be attacked by the Goliaths of life that keep coming, no matter how many times David tries to slay them with a slingshot and a rock upside his head. He keeps coming back. Evil keeps coming back. The apostasy. How do we stop it? How do we encourage people to move beyond their fear and hold on to that thing, that essence, that hope, that sense of spirituality, that role that God or that divine being plays in our lives to give us that strength? Work with us in our final 10 minutes.
So loaded, but such a great question. And so if you allow me, I'll go from the practical, right, and theoretical to the spiritual.
Take your time.
I am encouraging people, one, to pace themselves. I am a news junkie. Anyone who knows me, my church knows, my denomination knows, I was a news junkie. But I had to make a conscious decision to begin to filter what I was taking in. So that would be my first counsel. Filter what you are taking in, right? We are human. We can only consume so much bad news at a time, particularly when we are living in a time when the chaos and the disorder is intentional for the purpose of causing overwhelm. So at some point, decide how you're going to get your news. Maybe you need to download an app, right? Maybe you need to join a text message group, but you can't remain glued to it because it does have an effect on our physical person, our emotional person, our spiritual person. Two, it is critical during this time, and I hear my brother, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, talking, revisit our history. There are so many of us that do not know the ins and outs of our history. I, for one, find history inspiring. And
Yes.
that's why it's critical that we have to stand up and speak against the erasure that is taking place. Because if you look at our history, the amazing, astounding, incredible things that we have been able to do through human will and faith in partnership is inspirational and informative to this time. Right? And so I think we can draw inspiration from the fact that so many of our Black colleges were founded in the basements of Black churches, that so many of the institutions that have kept us were started with next to nothing, with simply a people who believed that it was possible and it was God's will. Right? The third thing I would say is that we have to begin to restore our communities. And whether that community is your family, whether that community is joining a community of faith, but now is not a time to be solo dolo, right? You're not to be out here on the river by yourself. That you need to be joined and connected of like-minded people, people who share your values, people who you can be transparent with. And for me, that's what church is. Church is the place where I can come in, right? Scream, holler, get it all out, receive. Where else can you do that, right? They just canceled the Cowboy Carter tour because the tickets was too high, but you come to church for free, right? Give an offering during offering time, and they gonna sing you happy, preach you happy, give you an opportunity to serve. And then moreover, find your place. Find your place. And so oftentimes we think we have to be doing what others are doing. But we all have our own lane, our own place, our own call, our own purpose. But we have to make a decision to engage where we are. All politics is local. So here where I am in Oakland, we're in the midst of a local election with an incredible Black woman, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, former Congresswoman, who is now running to be the mayor of our city, along with
The best
other folks.
ever, by the way. She was wonderful to serve with.
Best ever. So, and so we're engaged in that conversation because we realize that if we're going to have an effect nationally, that there's some things that are going to need to be in place locally. So find your place in these days and in these times where you can make your contribution. And then, of course, for me, scripture is always an inspiration. And I've been sitting with Hebrews, which, of course, was written to a persecuted people, right? A people who was absolutely going through it. So right there in that 10th chapter, the writer says, don't throw away your confidence. If we give up, the battle is already won. If they think we've given up, the battle is already won. The writer says, don't throw away your confidence. Then it goes on to say, because we have never been a people who shrinks and are destroyed. We've always been the people who have held our faith and persevered. So that 10th chapter, okay, so here's the scene, right? So the scene is Black Panther.
Paint the picture for us now. Paint the picture.
The original Black Panther, right? And so now T'Challa, he has to battle for the kingdom. And we see it. He comes down off the ship. All of our people, our ancestors are there. Beautiful Queen Mother Angela Bassett. Okay, but who do we have? Coming from the mountains, right? So we have the fight that's getting ready to ensue. Right when it looked like the battle was going to end and T'Challa was going to use his mother, Queen Mother, stood up and said, remember who you are.
That's what she said now.
And it was something in her calling his identity forth in him that caused him to have strength. Yeah, we get it. It might have been about the purple flower, right? But it was something else that she was speaking to. And so that is my call to us. Remember who we are. The descendants of a Nat Turner. The descendants of a Frederick Douglass. The descendants of a Harriet Tubman. The descendants of a Fannie Lou Hamer. The descendants of a Prathia Hall. Right? And the list goes on, and not just the names that we can call in the history books, your grandmother's baby.
Say that now.
Right? Who knew how to, as they say, rob Peter and pay Paul. Who knew how to take scraps and leftovers and come up with soul food, which is a delicacy that is sought after all around the world, right? So
That's it.
In these days and times, where they are trying to steal and erase our history and our contributions, I need us to remember who we are as a people and also as a people of God. Because the one thing I can say, and I'm so happy to be able to say it, I'm not as old as I hope to get, but I was young and now I'm older. And never have I seen the righteous forsaken, nor God's seed begging for bread. So those are the sources of my hope in these days and times. And people like you that are having conversations like this so that it doesn't just stay in our locales.
Pastor Thompson, share with us how we may support you, your work, and come visit you at Allen Temple.
Well, you can certainly visit our website. We're at www.allen-temple.org. I would also add, for those of you who are of the Baptist tradition, I'm blessed to be the second vice president of the Progressive National Baptist Convention, the denominational home of Dr. Martin Luther King. You can visit that website as well at pnbc.org, because PNBC is on its way to Chicago. And so that third week in July, yes, we are coming your way for our annual gathering, for our national meeting. And I certainly would love for those of you who are listening and in the area for you all to join us. You can follow me on all of our platforms. You can find them on the website as well. And just whenever you see my face, join in. Send a prayer, send an encouraging word, as they say, because it's hard out here trying to fight this fight, right? But I am grateful for those who did it for me, and I'm poised in position and committed to doing it for the generations that come behind us.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest has been Dr. Jacqueline Thompson, the pastor of Allen Temple. When we come forward, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you, Pastor Thompson.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Esther Dillard with 4th